Hi, my name is Yiting, and I'm here to give you an overview of a piece of research that my colleagues and I published in Music and Science. It's about how listening to music when you're doing any type of mental work, like studying for an exam or writing a report, may impact the outcomes of that work. Do you listen to music when you study or do any type of mental work? If you answered yes to this question, then maybe music makes your work less boring and more enjoyable. Or it helps you block out other distracting noises. Perhaps music helps you concentrate better and work for longer. But have you ever thought about how music might affect the quality of your work? If you think about it, when you listen to music and work at the same time, you're asking your brain to do several things at once. Think, for instance, about listening to a song with lyrics and reading. Both require the language areas of your brain at the same time. The problem with doing this is that listening to music could negatively affect your reading. This concern is not new. For decades, researchers have been studying how listening to background music affects your mental performance. However, this topic is so complex that understanding it by looking at individual research studies does not reveal a very clear picture. So we decided to conduct what is known as a systematic literature review, which is looking at as many articles published in this topic over the years and trying to get the big picture. To conduct a systematic review, first we identified the topic, which in this case is background music listening and cognitive task performance. Then we created a protocol, which is essentially a set of guidelines for us to follow to make sure that the whole reviewing process is done in a standard and objective way. After that, we started the search for relevant research articles on several online databases. Then we screened and selected relevant articles, and finally extracted and analyzed the data. The whole process is based on the Cochrane and Prisma guidelines for conducting systematic reviews. By doing this, we found 95 relevant articles, which contain 154 different experiments that tested the effects of background music on 27 different mental tasks, like reading, writing, or remembering information. We then grouped these tasks into 6 different groups, each representing a different type of mental process. We did this because background music might affect each process differently, so it's important to look at them separately. So what did we find? Generally, the way background music affects mental work depends on the person, the music, and the type of work. For example, we found that background music has a negative effect on people rating higher on a personality trait called introversion. But those that rate higher on extroversion do not seem to be negatively affected by the presence of background music. We also found that the type of music and the type of task matter as well. Specifically, music with lyrics impair reading as well as particular types of memory performance, especially those that involve remembering or recognizing verbal items like words, numbers, or sentences. And background music tends to impair performance when the tasks are difficult, but not when they're easy. However, there are still more to explore about this topic. There are still many things that we don't know. For example, although there are many studies related to how background music affects memory and reading, we still know very little about how music listening affects creativity, reasoning, and problem-solving skills, to name a few. There are also little studies that looked at things in a more realistic setting. Most experiments are relatively more simple and straightforward, whereby only specific mental tasks were studied, like focused attention or a specific type of memory. And these tasks tend to last less than 5 minutes. But in reality, the behavior is more complex. A typical study or work session would involve the use of different cognitive skills, and they would last longer too, presumably at least 20 minutes to half an hour. Overall, there are still more to be done to better understand how background music listening affects mental task performance. Thank you for listening and happy reading.